All right, welcome back to another episode of Divine Ethereal Beings. This time we're doing November update. I know it's probably the latest update I've probably ever done when it comes to the months. But for some reason, I literally kept forgetting about it. It didn't feel like November to me. I know it probably feels similar for some people. It's like, where the hell did October even go? So for me, it was kind of this weird state of like, I literally couldn't remember. And that usually tells me like there's something that I'm supposed to wait for. Like, I don't ever not remember if it's something that I feel like I should be doing. So and then all of a sudden I realized, oh, well, the full moon was, just the other day. So that felt like it was kind of this notion of waiting until the full moon kind of went through. And again, I was unsure because I thought, well, this seems pretty late. I mean, by the time I'm going to be doing this, it's going to be the 6th of November. And, again, my logical brain was thinking, oh, well, it should be going with the days of the month. And then I realized as I was sitting there, kind of, going back and forth with myself a little bit, I thought, oh, you know what? It is following the moon cycle, though, for a reason. Like, this energy is not really done moving out yet, necessarily from what maybe October kind of brought in, right? So, for me, it was like, oh, now I understand too that we're doing this now because the energy is going to start to change and shift now, now that the full moon has gone through. So this was another massively powerful full moon, as usually full moons usually are. But as we all know, we've had some pretty crazy supermoons coming through right now, and lots of shifts and lots of things changing, and a lot of really intense times we're in right now. Like, don't get me wrong, I understand that there's a lot of really intense stuff happening, all across the world. It's not just one place over another, it's everywhere. And it is affecting everybody differently, just depending on what it's looking like at, that kind of higher level of what might be happening. But we all know there is tons happening right now, and it's across the entire world, and it feels like very intense times. And it's feeling this intense because there's finally being pushed back to say, look, some of this stuff's just got to change, right? And change is very uncomfortable for the most part, especially at that higher collective level when it's we've had enough basically, and we're starting to push back on things that is making for change to happen, right? So it's definitely uncomfortable, to get me wrong. I know that and then you've got our physical bodies on top of all this, and we just have all of these upgrades and now all these downloads continuing to happen, some massive stuff integrating at a DNA level for every single person and everything that's, on our planet even. Like, we're all having to keep up with all these changes as well. And so it can feel like a lot sometimes, and I know that. And and in those moments is the perfect time to still bring forth your awareness of understanding. You can feel and be safe to feel, and to let it go. We don't need to continue to create stories to keep those emotions and feelings to continue to happen. So October brought forth a lot of this old, weird. We kind of had mentioned like it was going to be like this weird state where it was these things being said, and the kind of that patriarchal system moving again a bit, and just some really, unsure of like, did that really just happen, or did I just actually hear that right? Those types of moments. So as we progressed and went through Halloween, some of those veils and stuff also changed. And so there seemed to be this point of acceptance in certain people. I was also even seeing that maybe they could never, I don't want to say never accept before, but maybe they were pretty resistant. Let's say that's a better word. Pretty resistant maybe to what was actually going on, and what may have been happening in life in general, or not wanting to self-accept certain things of life. And, because to accept certain faults, quote unquote, that we feel like we might have, it can make someone feel really detrimental, and to shame and guilt and all those things, right? And yet at the same time, if society had not given us those types of beliefs, it would not be a problem. Right? So that's the thing about it too, is to have grace. Grace is a big theme this month, and observance, high observance of everything that's kind of going on. It is, and a lot of, silence is an answer. They just said that too. Again, they're like, silence is an answer. Not everything is going to need to necessarily entail, a direct answer in words back to someone, or due to a situation or whatever might be going on in relationships, friends, family, all the things, and partnerships especially. Like, silence is an answer, and to read into more of the energy rather than the words somebody might be saying, and to remember that there are flares. So what I I just had one of these happen to me the other day, actually. So this big flare up, and I got super angry, and really it was a dog that set me off. So our other dog is a basset hound, and uh, she stole something of LJ's one and my Boston Terrier. So And my Boston Terrier, she's extremely respectful. She could care less if you took something from her. But our Basset can be a little bit more stubborn. She likes to keep whatever she wants to keep, especially when it comes to food. And it was like the third or fourth time that's happened now, and just it just set me off. Like I just felt like this whole flame went from being a spark of frustration and slight anger to being like, oh, whatever, the stupid dog kind of deal, and letting it go. I um I chased the bloody dog right outside the house. And then thankfully being on the farm, she decided to cross over into the field and I'm standing at the fence post just absolutely screaming at her. And then it lasted maybe all of 2 minutes. It really wasn't that long. And once it was done, I was actually laughing. And it might seem like really counterintuitive to go from like that kind of state of rage. Like it was rage. It was full on rage. And to all of a sudden laughing. But I very quickly recognized it wasn't mine. I haven't felt rage like that probably since I was probably a teenager, or into my early adult years. Um, just with life and all the things back then, right? I was still very much living in a place of not living in my own truth or authenticity, and so I thought it was quite interesting. And I just chose again. I was partially laughing because I thought, oh, thank God, the dog is listening to me scream and yell instead of another human being, because the dog's going to forgive me in about 30 seconds. Whereas if that was another human being, I can only imagine what that probably might have escalated to. Um, but that's also the other point where I felt like it was really, it was really quite valid because I was here by myself and it was just us and the dogs. And I started to recognize that was actually probably coming a bit from the collective energy as well, which makes total sense. Again, there's so much intensity happening. There's a lot of that bubbling up and coming forward because, oh, interesting too. They just said that's like the old part of that patriarchal system coming out. Um, that especially for women have been, throughout so many times so suppressed and been told we are not allowed to do anything with our anger, or we're not allowed to express this rage, and we're not allowed to empower ourselves. So it felt like, some of that maybe was moving out, but also just in general with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's just so much happening, right? So I guess I just let it rip for for whoever and whatever around me decided I could do my little part in releasing that. And again, like I said, it was gone just as quick as it basically showed up. And as Zahara's always said, your emotion literally will only last 90 seconds in your body. And if it lasts any longer than that, then we've already attached some kind of story to it to recreate that loop that starts happening. So, it's intense. And November is a place of reflection. That's what basically keeps coming up. It feels like this full moon really anchored in a pretty grounded way in a lot of people. Yes, some of the energy shifts and changes that are going to continue to integrate, but in a way brought forward this reflection that's really observant in a very quiet space. Like I think that's probably the best way I could describe that. Uh, where it might, so for some people, this might feel really like isolation or really lonely to certain degrees, because if you're not used to being able to sit in silence or be alone and feel good about that, or if it's just not something maybe you're not totally used to, which is totally fine. I mean, people have families, you've got people around, and or you got coworkers, or you're doing stuff all the time with other people, right? Maybe you don't have a lot of time to yourself, and that's okay. I mean, it is life, right? We get that. Best to probably try and make a little bit of time for yourself. I hope you're not burning yourself at both ends of the candle, but at the same point, if it's just not something maybe you're not really used to because your life is, busier with other people mostly, that's okay. So it might be some of you guys that might feel a little bit strange by this silence, or this feeling of, again, it's not isolation, but it might feel a little bit like that. Where it's almost like you're kind of being pushed to just be in the moment and be okay with the silence and be okay with whatever is coming up in that exact moment, especially for yourself. And not to run away from the observance of all of it, because it's really, really powerful right now to reflect and see this old world moving out in ways, if you're definitely choosing not to resist and choosing to move with the changes. Um, we are long past the tipping point. We definitely are. There's nothing that can turn us back to, a different trajectory now. We've chosen at a collective level far enough into this now that we've really got some momentum happening. And that's part of why it's starting to become uncomfortable in the physical as well, because so much of this change is actually starting to integrate on the physical level. We've kind of been on the board of energy when it comes to shifts and changes in energy, changes in ourselves, choosing to live maybe different ways, choosing authenticity, choosing integrity. And we've been doing that as individuals. We get to choose whenever we want to do that, but also at a collective that started happening throughout the last few years. And so we've been kind of on the drawing board for the last little while. And this was the first year where a lot of that was actually going to start taking place into the actual physical world, where you were going to start to see more and more of this change start to happen. But again, where it feels a little bit more intense, it feels really challenging. There's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of charge behind this. That's where probably a lot of people's rage and anger are coming from, like I said. So this month is really going to be about more observance. To just simply observe. And here's how I just said to you again, where it's like sometimes you might just have to stop being human in your mind for a little while before you can. It doesn't have to be long. Maybe it's only 5 or 10 minutes, and it's plenty enough time that helps you just to regain your feet again and not be completely overwhelmed by the intensity of what might be going on. Especially if you're highly empathetic and you really feel for other people and you feel for their situations. There's nothing wrong with having compassion. Don't get me wrong, but it's also not your energy to take on. So observance is also going to be that factor of recognizing the intensity is there, and we can have compassion for what someone else might be walking through on their own journey, but also to hold the space of, again, holding kind of space of love and that non-judgmental way, so we can continue to move in the direction that is going to be for betterment of our entire humanity. But again, we know that we're kind of right in the midst of everything right now, and it can be hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I promise you it's there. It's there. And again, this observance will help with that. It'll help not to make it so detrimental in a way, I guess, and to not feel like everything's inundating you all at once. To remember you're not human. It might sound really silly, but you're not human. And so when you have all these emotions maybe show up, or you want to, your brain's trying to attach the stories, to try and have that awareness and observance in self and being like, you know what, I don't have to attach any kind of story. I can take a moment, I can just breathe and remember I'm not human. This is just a part of the experience of our duality here. And I still get to control my reactions. I'm not asking none of you to not feel what you need to feel. That's not the whole point of that at all. Observance is just the simple state that they're kind of putting it in to remember. You don't have to feel everything at once, and you can't. You literally can't be doing that for other people because it doesn't help anything. So the observance will help you understand what's there, what's actually needing to be released in this moment in time, just like my rage at the fence post, the other day. But again, it doesn't need to last a long time. Like no joke, it was all of maybe 2 minutes and I was fine, right? 2 minutes in our time sense of our world is very minimal. If you've got other things that maybe feel a little bit more dense or a little heavier or, feel a little bit more intense, um, again, maybe you feel it a little bit one day and then you feel it some more the next day and it starts to lessen, it starts to lessen. It doesn't need to all come out at once either. So give yourself some grace when it comes to the observant piece of things, especially with self. Now, if you're like, you know what, actually, I've been doing pretty well. I haven't had as much going on maybe in life as maybe some other people. That's fine too. And it's okay to just be an observance of what's going on with others, but do it from a place of understanding that this is change. Um, you know, we have so much support, like support and help available to us, especially in energetics and spirit and other beings. But so many of us forgetting to ask for that help when we are feeling like it's getting quite overwhelming to a certain degree of what we are feeling here on Earth. Um, that they're there to help. They're here to try and make some space with us as well. Or if you've got a loved one on the other side that you know and trust, and just even simply asking sometimes just for a little bit of extra space, just a little bit of breathing room, so that you can continue to move with this change. We have all chosen to be here for a very specific reason, and we're all chosen to be here right at this point in time because we all can handle it. No matter what, it has to change. It can't last forever. So this month of observance and reflection will help with the understanding of what's already happened, what's still moving, and where maybe you play a little bit of a role, or whether you are able to hold space, or whatever it might come down to, right? So observance is going to help make sense, I guess, but also bring some clarity to whatever the situation might be at that moment in time, that you might be feeling like kind of in the midst of, right? And just remembering you're not human. And when you reminding yourself of that, your body actually literally will be like, oh yeah, right. Right. We just interpret energy. So why do we need to assign a story to it up here on a constant basis? Right? We don't, but it is a learning curve. So observance this month will be important for all aspects, including self and other situations or people around you. Um, Silence is also another answer because you will see people have that instantaneous reaction, right? or maybe they're kind of spitting acid a little bit, and maybe they are really angry. Maybe there is a lot of stuff coming out. And I don't want to say it's all victim of because it's definitely not right now. It's definitely a lot of generational things as well, as we know. October brought up some weird stuff with that, and it's going to kind of continue a little bit throughout the month of November. But I think it's not maybe going to be so much as the one-off of like people don't recognize what's been said, as much as they're probably going to feel it as very much their own. So that's why I say some people might spit acid a bit. And maybe really not some nice ways, right? Where it's like, wow, that person's really just being an asshole right now. But silence is an answer to those types of things right now, too, because your energy is stronger than your physical said words a lot of the time. So if you have a space of, look, I'm not needing to answer that because there is no point in answering that, but also it doesn't allow that other person to continually be validated maybe in what they're kind of looking for as a reaction from someone else, right? So it kind of asks that person to be in their own energy rather than something kind of being tailed out where it's now becoming an argument and they feel like they can win. Right? I hate to put it like that, but that's exactly what it feels like to me. And even for the nicest, sweetest people, you may see some of that still come out of them even in this month as that reflection continues to happen, right? If people are unwilling to accept or they're really resistant to still what's going on or the change or resistance to self-accepting, you will see even the nicest people and some of that come out in them this month as well. And to be honest, they're probably going to be the ones that are going to beat themselves up the hardest for it because it's not, a part of quote unquote my nature. I could have been upset with myself for screaming at the dog like I did, but it's not to say that I knew I would never hurt my dog. I was just letting rip out the rage, right? So, but there's no point in me getting upset because it doesn't make sense to get upset, right? It was just an emotion. And that's the beautiful thing about animals understand energy. The dog knew that, I wasn't necessarily her. I was reacting to something that was obviously in the field at that point in time. So, and literally 5 minutes later, she was asking to come back in the house. So, it's not like it was not a big deal. And it doesn't need to be a big deal with anything. And that's why silence and choosing very carefully your words, if you do choose to use words, will be a prevention to having to feel like this backtrack that maybe starts to happen in people, places, things, or especially relationships, especially with loved ones. um they're like so many of you just want to instantaneously eat your words and you want to apologize. But the thing about it is our energy now, especially where we're at with where we're headed towards, it is always been our first language, but it's probably even more so now. And just remembering your words are only ever going to match someone else's perception of what their definition is of what you just said. Even if you mean it in the most nicest way or whatever, right? Maybe your intention is super pure and you just truly do want to help somebody, and you care, and that's why you're saying these things. But that person, you have to remember, has their own perception. And if it is triggering to them and they all of a sudden see red because of it, it's not your fault. But just to remember, that's why your words need to be chosen very carefully. Because if they don't feel good to you, even while you're saying them, I can guarantee you that somebody else's energy already perceiving them in that way. And it's nothing to do with your intention right now. It's just simply because the energies of our world are becoming so potent in a way that we feel more. We are upgrading our DNA, which means we're getting access to things that, we've always had access to certain degrees, but we were never able to access them as easily as we are now. So energy is super powerful, right? It is, and it's funny because I can feel they're kind of like our beautiful external processors who like to talk. There's nothing wrong with that because we understand it's your process. But this is where you may also feel the need to either talk to yourself or talk to somebody that, is going to give you the space just to maybe release whatever you need to release out and understand it's just as a process for you. Because again, and you might do it with somebody that all of a sudden has something to say, or, it was your space that worked really well before, but now maybe that person is all of a sudden having a bit of a different reaction or whatever might be coming up, right? And it's again, just to remember that in high intense times, everybody's stuff comes to the surface, including our own perceptions and the way that we all as individuals coming from our own set of glasses that we all wear, are all tuned completely different. You can have similarities, but nobody's glasses are ever going to be the same shade as the next person's. So this is why I say using your gut and intuitive self and knowing and reading energy first will allow you to understand, can I say words in this situation and they're going to be received well enough for that person, that is, going to come with love and integrity, that they understand that I'm truly just saying it to either have conversation or it's coming from a very loving place or whatever it is your intention might be. And sometimes your intention might be more dark than you want it to be too, right? Maybe all of a sudden you do have that motion of like, man, I really just do want to freaking, stick your head in the mud and give you a couple hits to the back, right? Like, and that's that rage. That's the rage in the collective right now too, right? As things are changing and this stuff is getting released, we have to remember we are part of the collective consciousness as well. No matter how hard you might, do that for yourself and keeping awareness and not wanting to play in those fields, that's a part of our duality that just needs to be accepted. Um, and sometimes you just might feel it like I did with the rage the other day, right? So, and that's okay. It's okay. But just remembering to pay if you're feeling to have words, whether you're an external processor, whether you're, just having a conversation with somebody, just take an extra moment just to pause and just be like, okay, what can I say here that will be received well? Again, if you're doing it from an authentic place of self, it's never going to go against the grain where somebody's probably going to jump down your throat for it, but they might feel agitated, but it's probably not going to necessarily lead to a big blowout. Um, but I can't say that it won't either, because depending on how the rest of this month goes and into our next full moon is actually when it kind of is. So that's the time frame, starting kind of into the next little bit, you may feel that intensity. I don't want to say it's going to be consistent, but it definitely will kind of falter in and out. So dreams are a huge one right now too. A lot of things are being processed out in dreams, and in some ways, it's hard to said too. Again, they just reminding me that like even in those realms, everything's shifting and changing as we're continuing to shift and change on Earth too. So our dynamics, our relationships with those realms, with those things, with that energy is also gaining momentum to be stronger and easier to connect in. Sure, yes, absolutely. But it's also changing in a bit of the connection of like who we are as we raise in frequency as well, right? So our process in dreams is changing, our way we're experiencing stuff in dreams. If you've already been a vivid dreamer and you're like, wow, my dreams have always kind of felt really real, it might not be super different for those people because we're pretty used to already having those kinds of experiences of being like, wow, this is crazy. Like almost can't even tell if like did that actually happen or was that a dream, or a sense of deja vu feeling almost coming from dreams. That has been common for some others. But, so again, if you're a vivid dreamer, you might not notice it quite as much. But if you're someone that maybe didn't always remember your dreams or kind of would only have the one off or something like that, that was a little bit more intense. If you're waking up feeling like you've just done a whole day's worth of work rather than sleeping, that's probably because you're processing some things out differently as well in the dream realms. So of self, right? It's just another aspect of self. So that's the other piece that can come with that, and it can be intense. In doing that kind of thing as well. So, the tiredness, the exhaustion that some people may have been feeling even the last few months, can be a part of all this change that's happening. I wouldn't say it's going to intensify this month in that aspect, but the dreams definitely are going to continue to shift, and you may feel some of that intensity or some of those emotions being worked out in dreams. And if you're, again, not someone that maybe remembered your dreams a whole lot, and all of a sudden you do seem to be getting bits and pieces or little things coming back here and there throughout the day, don't think too hard into what that dream was trying to tell you or what it meant, because a lot of the time right now too, it's a lot of that processing out of whatever's needing to get out of the way, as us as individuals, but also at the collective level too. So there you have it. There's a lot going on. Make sure you have some grace for yourself, in the intense times that are going to continue here. I mean, it's going to be intense times right into the new year, but for different reasons, it feels like. So maybe right now we are releasing a lot of emotion, releasing a lot of the old ways of doing things. Patriarchal systems are moving. It can be a slow burn in certain areas, we know that, but at the same time, the emotional aspect of that is gonna kind of continue a little bit here. Then we'll see a little bit more of a reprieve. It feels like definitely some of that clarity will start to come, but it won't always be the emotional side of everything. But the intensity of, this change is going to continue. It's going to continue right into 2026, and then something around February is going to shift. I don't know what. I don't know exactly what is going to look like by then. But I definitely feel like something is going to, put us on a different kind of trajectory. Of movement and motivation and all the things. So again, big shift, but at the same point, just we're going day by day. Okay, day by day. Don't be thinking too far about the future. Don't be thinking about the past. Again, it's just you don't need to be reliving stories that are anchoring in emotions that are not worth carrying around any longer. Okay, so doing the best you can just to be day by day, staying present as you can, because being in presence brings you back to that awareness of self and the observant place to be. And just again, some days might feel like a lot more, and you go to bed and knowing that it's okay because if I get to wake up tomorrow morning again, we get to have another shot at everything once more. And we're not going to take anything that came from the day before, right? So day by day, you're going to just keep going day by day, moment by moment. And you're not going to worry about the time. You're not going to worry about all the things that are going on around you because it's pointless. It's absolutely pointless. You can have that compassion for everybody else, especially if you feel like, actually, you know what, I've been doing pretty good. I've been doing okay. Maybe some other people I know have been going through a lot, and that's okay. You can send them that love and energy and support. But again, silence is important in to a certain degree. Be aware of what you're saying, and really feel and take that moment before you say anything. Just to again feel into that energy. You're not trying to decide if, is it a good thing to say or a bad thing to say. You're trying to judge by the amount of energy. Is this going to be something, no more neutral space, or, are we going to have a hot tamale in our hands after this, right? So just remembering to stay mindful, not just of self, but of your surroundings. Allow the reflection to come in, allow the ahas to maybe come in. Maybe you start to see things and being like, oh, that makes sense now, right? A bit of that could be happening as this continuation of the new world is continuing to be anchored. So that full moon was potent, but I do feel like it was definitely a little bit more grounding than the last one. And it's just asking for presence in self and to be observant and to not feel overwhelmed by the intensity that's going to continue here for the next little while. So this, again, just a reminder, this is from November 6th right now. And they are kind of showing me closer to the full moon in December. I don't know exactly when the full moon is in December. I can't, the dates flew out of my head for some reason, which is fine. But I wouldn't say right up to that point, but this is, I think, why I felt like doing the podcast today felt more relevant than doing it, right at the end of October or first thing into November here. So I hope that this was helpful. Honestly, if you ever have any questions or you're looking for a little bit of clarity, please send me a message. I will do my best. I mean, sometimes I do jump around quite a bit in here because I'm, following all sorts of different trails of energy through my own being and then, literally interpreting them in this way. So I always love to hear from you guys if it resonates, if it makes sense. If you ever have any questions, like drop them as a comment or send me a message. And yeah, we look forward to having you on the next episode if you choose to join us. So thank you again for tuning in.